I'm trying to create efficiencies in staff resources by not having them waiting in the public gallery for hours while we debate. Time is money, time is money. Okay, so we're moving on to 11.2, Otaki Pool Master Plan. We've already had a few discussions around this, so we look forward to formalising some agreements today so we can move forward. So, welcome to the team.
Yeah, thank you.
Take it away.
Thank you very much. And yeah, thanks for everybody's time today. So we're here today to bring this report in front of Council for the approval to proceed on option 3 of the proposed master plan of the concept options for Otaki Pool. And also to note the delay in the start of the construction from 2020 till 2027 to 2028 as per the long-term plan. Can we take this report as read? Thank you. And also that we had the energy reports sent through from Dave Hardy earlier in the week. Yeah, great. Okay, so I guess we can, put it forward to questions.
Yeah, if anybody who's interested, particularly those online or watching a recording of this, there was an open briefing, I believe, on the 20th of August, which should be available online if people want more details, seeing as we're taking the report as read today. Yes. Councillor Wilson, would you like to open with a question?
Yep. My only question is, and I've read the report again, is there anything different than we had at the briefing?
No.
Yeah. Done.
Glenn Olsen.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Sorry, I wasn't at the briefing previously. Just one question. The amount there, the 12 million, what's unclear to me is that the cost of including any debt and servicing the debt, so interest over a period of time? Because if not, I guess, that's not going to be 12 million, it's probably going to be about 15 million or somewhere around there.
No, that's the construction cost, the capital cost, including project management, construction, and those costs. The operating costs, which would include funding, the debt funding, depreciation, are not part of the dollars in terms of the paper in front of you today.
Okay, so the true cost will be higher, is what I'm saying, by the time you service the debt and pay interest and everything else.
With all of Council's capital works, there's an element of interest cost in servicing that debt, and that as a whole, I think if you look at the Council's financial strategy, there's a whole lot of information there in terms of that total level of debt and the focus on trying to get that down. But yes, that's, again, would be the same for all of our capital work.
Yeah, and the last question I have is this, are we looking at doing this as a local rate or will it be a district rate?
District-wide funding for
so seen as a district-wide asset, yeah.
Aquatics facilities.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Councillor Cofford.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick one. Personally, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the $12 million cost of this, but my question is, why do you have two consultant architects? One's not an architect, actually. You've got HTP, is it, and Poe Architecture, and the consultants cost, what, over $1 million? It just...
Yeah, so Poe Architecture have been brought on board to work alongside Nahapu or Otaki as well, and to add some cultural elements within the building.
Oh, thank you.
Councillor Halliday.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Like, I have to apologise. I'm afraid I was at a local government conference when this one was on. So, but I don't have too many questions. The report was pretty clear. My first one, though, is just, I'm just curious, how old is the actual building at the moment?
Oh, the original...
Roughly.
1973, the pool was originally made.
And then we updated it at some stage as well, did we?
Then it was covered over, I can't quite remember that date, and then in 2017 it was refurbished.
It was 86, I think, was cut. There was an article recently, I think, in the Otaki News that had some very interesting background there. But
okay.
Yeah, it was 70s and then mid-80s it was upgraded.
Okay, that's cool. At number 32 on page 28 of the agenda, we've got the estimated costs. There's two. It says escalation at 840,000. What do you mean by escalation?
That's to do with the time frame and the delay that we've got from now till construction. So looking at the history of costs increasing over time, that's taking into account
Right, so
looking at trends.
Okay, thanks for the explanation on that. But wouldn't that so that's contingencies is basically our leeway as well, is that right?
And contingencies are also for unknowns.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess because of trends, what we've seen, cost escalation, I think if you put it into a contingency, it's more.
And like, I guess it's clearing for that because we've seen how much that's changed over the last 3 years. So it's sort of a new addition to these sorts of costings, is it?
We would normally, if you hit in the LTP, we have inflation CPI adjusted costs. That's the increased cost of that capital based on the fact that it's 3 to 4 years out into the future. The contingency is more physical in terms of elements that we might not necessarily be aware of, and does cover some of that stuff. But if you know there's an absolute, you know what that's more likely to be, we've separated them out, so it's a bit clearer.
And KCD overheads, KCDC overheads, is that allowance from an operational perspective what we do internally?
That covers the cost of managing the project. So all of the capital projects that council deliver, there's an element of staff time associated with that, and so that cost comes back through to the project.
Just curious, is that particular cost, does that come out of operational annual operational depreciation costs, or will that be part of the borrowing aspect?
That's part of the borrowing. So again, if you've got staff that are working on a new building, their effort and time is associated with the new building, so you capitalise that time, and it's part of the overall cost.
Cool. Okay, that's pretty clear. Thank you for that. Generally, all good. The one thing I did notice there was the energy reports around the solar panelling to go on the roof. Has there been a decision made in that space with regards to what's going to happen? Because I notice it's a substantial cost, but it seems to me that there's a bit more conversation needed in that space, because it could be something, I think it was a 20-year plus return on the investment. But I'm picking that financially didn't really stack up. So the loose recommendation was perhaps look at it at some other time as such. And I'm picking that, say, technology might come down in 10 years' time, but it might be more appropriate to look at it then.
Yeah, that's correct. And so that's something that we'll look further into through preliminary and detailed design.
Yeah.
As this is only a very high-level concept that we're looking at the moment, yes, we'll.
So
we'll
if there's a decision to be made to go forward on that, would that be coming back to this table?
Oh, there's a lot more information to come back to this table before we get to awarding the tender. So we'd look to future-proof it, I guess, through the design process to make sure the roof could take that loading if that's what we're going to do. But where we're at the moment is that it's not financially viable to look at that option at the moment. So we're going with the heat pump alternative. So, but we certainly front of mind through the design that we might want to look at that in like 10 or 15 years.
Going electric, it's renewable. And that sort of thing there as well. So those sorts of trade-offs too. I noticed there was comments around the environmental side of things with regards to council, but it seems to me that stacked up more than likely to stick with the power side. Okay, that's my questions. Thank you very much.
Councillor Cooper.
Yeah, sorry to go down into the weeds. I hate going into the weeds. But just a question around, so the changing rooms, you've got female, male, family. Have you got gender neutral? Are they the change 4 metres squared, those two ones?
Yes, so there will be some gender neutral. It might be along the lines of the accessibility type areas as well. So they'll just be available.
Great, awesome. It's obviously a big spend for the district, but I think it's really good for Otaki and a good spend. Yeah, exactly where we should be putting our money. Thank you. And a good report as well, on the back of a good briefing. Thanks.
Mr. Butler.
My apologies, I didn't think I was quite up to me next. Just a quick question. It was identified in the report that further car parking is required, and it was something that we had some interesting discussions about, particularly the sports club. Within the costs that are presented there, is that including any increase in the car parking, or is that something we're sort of pushing down the road a little bit?
Yeah, so as part of our wider project control group, we're bringing the parks team and the roading team into those conversations as well, and seeing what other budgets are around the park as well. So what we've got here is the budget for the pool, But yes, we're looking at what needs to be done around the wider car parking area, and preferably if we could do that prior to construction starting, that would be ideal.
Nami.
Councillor Pravanov.
Thank you, through the chair. So I know we have a number of pools around the district, and I suppose I'm wondering how this spend is being prioritised, because I know that there was going to be an upgrade to the kiosk at the Waikanai pool, and that has now been, I think it's either been delayed or canned. And so how all this fits together, and so we're actually getting a good picture of the priorities, well, I suppose, for pools around the district.
So in terms of the information today, the Otaki pool upgrade is currently in the LTP, the budget. So some of that prioritisation is actually what we worked through in terms of the LTP process, in terms of where those funds were sitting and when. In terms of the Waikanai kiosk conversation, I certainly know that the overall reduction in the capital works budget, we took 100 million out of the first 3 years, as part of that conversation we're currently having at the moment as to how to prioritise what remains within there based on the limits we have associated with CapEx. So I don't know the detail of the kiosk, and that'd be something that we could talk about offline and give you some information on what's happening there. But certainly prioritisation and deliverability was part of that conversation early on. And again, we did talk through some of that through the long-term plan, and that's why we have the Otaki pool sitting out in year 4 or 5, I think. 4 in terms of construction. I think the kiosk is probably more a function of the limitations in the first 3 years, where we've reduced the CapEx budget by, is it 100 billion?
So I remember seeing the plan, so to me it was actually fairly high, fairly soon, in terms of long-term
We're
plan.
going to come back with more
Yep.
information about that. It's
Thank
slightly
you.
off the topic of the paper today, but a good question. So I saw a couple of lights pop on during that discussion. I'm just wanting to draw us back to the decision that's in front of us, which is the options for the Otaki pool upgrade. Councillor Warwick.
I was just going to move it.
Yeah. So
It's very quick.
yeah. Okay. We'll have
Oh,
Councillor
the only
Halliday's
question I
question,
had-
and then we'll go to a mover, and we're going to have.
Yeah, and it's more likely it was covered in the briefing, so again, I do apologise. But there's that gap with regards to the funding aspect of things. I was just curious to know why that was. Is that simply just a spreading out of cost?
Yes, absolutely. So we were tasked with looking at the overall budget for the next 10 years and projecting it out in a way that was more affordable. So that's meant that we prioritised projects through that time frame, and again, we reduced the overall capital budget by a significant amount in the first 3 years. So having it in year 4 allows us to then focus on the Waikanai Library. Then we've got more work to do in Otaki as well. That's why it's sitting out there.
I appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
Okay, so we've got recommendations A and B, approve proceeding with option 3 and noting the delayed construction to 27-28. Moved by Councillor Warwick, seconded by Councillor Coe. Right of introduction.
Oh, sorry. You. No, just thanks to the staff for working with the community, because I believe you worked with the clubs that use the pool and the patrons. So it looks like a good plan, and I think it will bring in more revenue with the ability to tap into sports days and stuff in the park. So hopefully a win-win for everyone.
Councillor Coe.
Look, I just want to speak to those people who have been a bit vocal on social media about this project. I put a comment on social media this morning to say we need to think about what kind of a community we want to live in here. We cannot just stop making capital expenditure and end up living in a shithole. Excuse my French, but we we have to maintain and upgrade our facilities and build new facilities like libraries, halls, swimming pools, whatever. What kind of place do we want to live in? So those people who are out there knocking this kind of expenditure, you need to really ask yourself that question. What sort of a community do you want to live in? And we do want to live in a nice place. And, this is not a huge amount of money. I'd also like to point out to Councillor Cooper that who appears to be in favour of spending $12 million on a swimming pool, that $12 million would go a long way in terms of economic development and creating jobs and economic prosperity for this community. And so I'm assuming he's going to sort of not approve any expenditure that doesn't bring a benefit. But anyway, that's a bit of an aside. So I fully support this because we do, for those people who would like to see council spend no money at all, that's completely unrealistic, and we don't want to live in that kind of place where all the facilities are just left to go to wreck and ruin. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd encourage councillors to stick to the current debate rather than referring to previous debates. I was almost going to interrupt in the middle there. Just let's stay on topic. I know we haven't agreed on every issue this morning, but let's stick to the issue at hand. Councillor Handford? Councillor Handford.
Yeah,
Bring us back into perspective, please.
Sounds good. So just wanted to add in kind of another plug, as Councillor Halliday questioned, around the potential for solar and making sure that the design and also the build is future-proofed for the potential of that. And also, yeah, cool to see that sustainable building principles will be kept in mind, and hopefully not just in mind, but will be actioned throughout the building process. And yeah, making use of the expertise and knowledge within the climate team to create kind of more integration across the knowledge and research that team is continuing to do. So thank you. And yeah, great work. I'm really encouraged by the fact that we had such a great briefing on this leading up to the decision we're making today. So I appreciate the time that went into bringing that to us. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd also just like to add congratulations for the engagement that's happened to this point with users, stakeholders, the community. I said it on a session with the Youth Council, I think, a little while ago, and just really great to have that feedback and that community buy-in into the proposal that we've got in front of us today. So thanks for getting us to this point. Mr. Butler?
You sort of stole my thunder there,
Sorry.
Mayor Holborough. That was perfectly said, because the team has been really good at coming out to the community, because I've had my Otaki Canoe Club hat on in the meetings with them, and they have taken on suggestions and listened, so it has been a fantastic process, so the community does appreciate it.
Oh, really good to hear that comment from somebody who actually knows about it. So, right of reply, Councillor Warwick?
Oh, I've got my light on.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Cooper, and then right of reply.
Yeah, this is the exactly type of project that does drive economic development. And to my knowledge, the EDKB hasn't been anywhere near it. And just to footnote that, in future, I'd just like fellow councillors to leave my name out of their monologues and not take seemingly personal attacks in the public forum of this council. And I actually think an apology is warranted, either from the chair or from the councillor.
Yeah, I was wondering whether to interject during that contribution to debate, and in retrospect, I probably could have. I don't think that there was any personal slight, any major personal slight. It was more a disagreement with some of the position that councillors have taken.
I'm happy to apologise.
Yeah, and I apologise too. Right of reply, Councillor Warwick? We're all very sorry.
We're sorry for you too.
Look. Just before I go to the right of reply, it has been quite heated. We're in a difficult political environment at the moment with extreme pressure on us from central government to change course even before legislation is enacted, and a real pressure to watch every dollar that we spend. And that's something that we're taking very seriously. And I think the debate around the table today has reflected that. So just rest assured, who the two people who are watching online, we don't take that into the lunchroom, and and we'll continue to be able to have robust debate around this table. And we're good at kind of drawing the line if it steps over that line of not respecting each other. So thanks for bringing that to our attention, Councillor Cooper. And let's go to Councillor Warwick for a right of reply.
Well, just looking at page 33, me and Kim probably swam in the pool when it looked like that, I'd say. And I did do a little piece a while ago in the paper, which I'll send around, about the history of the pool and the roof and everything. The frame that is there is actually a gantry crane from Lion Breweries that was bought by the community for $1, I think, and moved there and put in place by the community. So the history of this pool is that it's been a very well-loved asset to our community. And we have had a lot of support in the past to keep the pool a few years ago and to upgrade it. So it would be really cool to continue on that, because it is a very massive asset to our community. So thank you, everyone.
Okay, I'll put... Oh, we've had the right of reply, Councillor Provanov, so I'm going to put it to the vote unless you have something extremely urgent and relevant that you need to say.
I was just going to say that my understanding is that the design of the Otaki pool was based on the Waikanai pool.
Okay, good to have that information. I'll put that to the debate. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, that's carried. Well done. Fantastic. Okay, we're now going to move on to 11.3, reports and recommendations from community boards, starting from page 46 on elected members' papers. So, do you want to use this one? We're just waiting for a microphone battery. In the meantime, we might want to look at the recommendations, A, B, C and D.
Yeah, kia ora koutou. So I'll mostly take this report as read, but just suggesting that perhaps Community Board Chair Kim Butler may want to speak to that, and also that Chris Pavan may have some insight too.
Okay, so the recommendations are coming from the Otaki Community Board, but I'll go to the chair after I've had input from the acting chief executive.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. Just to note, there is some staff commentary in the paper, just to highlight that in terms of the recommendations, which is slightly different to how we've presented these reports in the past. So we've had a bit of time to provide a bit of background as to the staff view on those recommendations provided by the board, and I can't remember the paragraph numbers, but if you towards the end of the report, those last sort of 4 or 5 paragraphs provide further information that you might want to consider through this process. Thank you.
So just for clarity, do those 4 or 5 paragraphs support the recommendations that are in front of us?
So paragraph.
Let's just find it.
8. If you go to paragraph 8, is really the start of that. So with regard to the bylaw proposal, that currently isn't included or allowed for in any sort of staff work program at the moment, and we don't have any sort of budget allocation to look to do any sort of consultation associated with that. So recommendation is that we'd need to come back and provide you some information if you were of a mind to progress with that one. There's no further information there, although I do note I think there's some recent publicity up in Hamilton where the police were talking about the adequacy of their current provisions for dealing with these types of issues. So but if the decision is to do that work, then we need to come back, and then the rest of those 9 through to 13 talk about the resolution or recommendation regarding Moy Place, and highlighting that there is a formal process that we're actually involved in at the moment, and that will need to come back to council. So there is I guess there's legislation that we need to comply with in terms of making that decision and bringing that information back to you, so you can be party to that before you make a decision. So again, that would suggest that you're better placed to wait until further information comes back before adopting or resolving the second resolution from the Otaki Community Board.
Yeah, so that's the reason why that has a noting resolution. So the thing about these reports is we're not stopping having noting resolutions. Where we aren't in a position to take action, we'll have a noting resolution. Where staff recommend that we're not in a position to take action. So there's nothing wrong with them intrinsically. They have their use, and this is one of those times, I would have thought. So in terms of what Sean said about the first one, I don't think that is in conflict with what we see in front of us, because all we're asking for is investigating and getting further information, which is just saying we don't want to give up on that idea until we know more about it, and we can work out where it might fit in the future into some of our work programs, if possible. So we're not telling them to go ahead and create a bylaw, which would be bad decision making in my view. We're just having a further look at it to see if it's something we want to progress. So with that, I'll go to Cam, actually, just because we've agreed that it's important, after some previous experiences, that the chair of the community board has the opportunity to give a bit of background.
Ngā mihi nui, Madam Chair. Kia ora tātou. So there's those 2 resolutions on the table. I'll just quickly speak to the second one, because that's a real quick one. The Otaki Community Board is supporting the residents of Moy Place and Sue Ave in not wanting the vast increase in traffic through their cul-de-sac as part of the Moy Estate development. Ngā Hapa Otaki were also in support of the road being elsewhere, and so this is really just throwing our support behind that, and that, as it says in the report, it'll come up in October. So there's probably not a great deal more that I need to say as chair regarding that. Regarding the first version, do note there that it is the ability for the staff to produce a report to come back to this table to say the potential cost, and we do understand that it hasn't been budgeted for, but we do see the heavy vehicle and or cruising side of things as an oversight. It's a pity it wasn't put in there in 2022. But as we've seen with the Hamilton side of things, and with the events that happened in Levin, the events that happened in Otaki, that some measures are there to help. We're not going to solve the issue of people and some of the delinquent activity that's gone around about motor vehicles. I've had some good discussions with Councillor Spears about how to actually provide alternatives, but you've still got to deal with some of the problems. Because in speaking with Sam as the Gilpin, who's the head of Horowhenua Police, when there was a skid pad up in Levin, people went and did skids at the skid pad and then still went out onto the streets and did further skids. And so having a facility does help deal with the problem, but doesn't get rid of it. This here would not require the council to enforce the bylaw. It just gives the local police further tools in their toolkit to deal with the issue, and this has been personally requested by Horowhenua Police for the council to look at. If you talk to Mr. James Jefferson, he claims that Tauranga Council solved their problem overnight by putting this bylaw in. I haven't checked on that, so maybe that's something to check with him. He might be making an interesting claim, but it'd be fantastic if that did work. So we're asking for a bylaw to be put in place, but we understand the first step is looking at the costs. The hope is there that with it being a small insertion, and with our presentation we tried to actually literally give a copy and paste alternative, that it's actually not going to require full consultation and then therefore a lower cost. And I'm sure through our grants process we could put $750 towards it.
Okay, I'm looking for either questions or a mover. Do you have a question, Councillor Wilson?
Yep. Shelley probably wants to move it. Yeah, the question is in relation to number 9, and I agree. I think number 10 covers number 9 nicely. But given that, I would be recommending that councillors have a site visit there. I mentioned this before. I think it would be. I've done it myself, and I think it was very valuable to have gone there. But a site visit wouldn't. Well, this is not rhetorical. So the question is, would a site visit be an issue?
It's a public road. Anybody can go there.
Yeah.
No, absolutely
Nobody's
not.
being
You're more than
prejudiced.
welcome to. You might get a few residents coming out to see what's happening if there are a number of councillors that go on that meeting, but I'm sure they'll probably be made aware that something might be happening. But no, it's a public piece of land. It's a council reserve. You can go and have a look at it.
Happy to take a drive up there and
I think
take anybody who wants to come.
could be a really valuable experience. And I'm just wondering, is there going to be another opportunity to talk about community boards? Because if not, I'll just say what I want to say now.
Yeah, just say what you want to say.
Okay. I think we should acknowledge the award-winning Raumati Community Board. Hasn't happened yet, but they were the Community Board of the Century. I think it was can't remember what the exact title was, but it was a really big deal. Best in the country. And the Waikanai Community Board was also a certificate for enhancing communities. So
Thank you, Councillor Wilson.
well done to 2 of our community boards right up there. Brilliant.
Yeah,
So-
and I was so excited about what happened last night. I forgot about what happened last week.
That's right. Yeah.
And my introduction today. Well done, Bede. It's just such a wonderful achievement. And congratulations too to Mike, who's not here, for the work that he's done at Te Horo. And Sophie, she made a community board and then won an award with it. And if anybody wants to read my column in the Kapiti News this week, I focused on community boards and their value. And I'd also like to, while we're talking about that, the other thing I mentioned in my column is the fantastic hui with Kāinga Ora MSD, organised by Shelley and the community board, Cam and Simon, where they, and Nahapo Otaki, where everybody finally connected and started to work out how to get local people into local houses. So that kind of thing is just going really strong in the district. So yeah, fantastic. Thank you for bringing that up, Councillor Wilson. We'll continue with what's in front of us. I've got, is it a question?
Yeah.
Yep.
Just a brief question. I know we've talked about budget for the bylaw, and we're not asking for that, but there will be a cost for the feasibility. Is that going to fit within business as usual?
Yeah, that's probably more around staff communicating with other councils that have that bylaw in place. I don't know if we'd need any sort of legal advice at this stage. It's probably more around looking at some of the issues around a bylaw that if you're putting a bylaw in place and you're not intending to enforce it, and what are the consequences of that in terms of the community's expectation around who will be enforcing it.
Okay.
So no, I don't expect it will be significant to get to that next stage to come back to.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'll just move it. No, here we go.
Okay. So we'll just take our last question and then we'll go to a mover and a seconder.
Thank you, through the chair. So I suppose this is a higher level question again in relation to, so we have our work program, but quite often there are things that come up which are pertinent to potentially put on it, but you don't want to, have knee-jerk reactions. So what is the ability to have some flexibility in changing things depending on what the priority is over a year?
Well, so that would depend on the scale of what you were wanting to change, really.
Is it scale
There
or
are
is it
multiple.
importance?
We meet reasonably regularly with a number of committees, so opportunities to bring issues to those committees, then to get staff input into how much of a change we might be able to accommodate within existing resources, how much of a change requires, additional funding or a major step change in terms of current policy or practice. So it's not really one sort of single mechanism to cover everything. Other than to say that once we agree on a course of action for the annual plan or the LTP, there's a lot of effort then that goes into staff delivering on that work. So to change track on something major halfway through the year would be disruptive and quite difficult. So it really is case by case, and we do try and accommodate things. If there is no major financial or issue with it, we will try and pick that up and run with it. But it is getting more difficult as we look to try and manage costs to start to add things in, because the consequence of that is then taking things out. And the Capital Works program is a good example where we're going to have to. There's decisions there about we just don't have enough money to do everything. So.
Thank you.
A very good answer. So, Councillor Warwick is moving. Who would like to second? Seconded by Councillor Coфord. Right of introduction?
I'd just like to say thanks to Cam, Simon and Jackie for all the work they've done on the around the bad driving in Otaki, which also is about Kapiti. And I'm just wondering, it's been a lot of work. You've done an amazing job. If the recommendation came from police, it's probably a question, but this is kind of, would that help with the process of not going down a full bylaw, but changing a bylaw? And just to say that I know that neither of these can be acted on right now, but with regard to Moy Place, it has caused a significant amount of stress and heartache to the people who live there. It is a product of the fast track consenting, unfortunately, and there is an alternative to access the new development. It would be good if people did go down and have a look at the map before you go, because there's actually land to the south and 2 plots of land to the back of that development that will be built on at some stage, and it's unfortunate that the council has had their hands chopped off in effect by the fast track consenting without being able to put a lens over how the development could enhance access in the future. Unfortunately, it's probably a legal thing for us to decide, and we'll have information on the implications of that. But yeah, if you could go and have a look, it's incredibly horrible for these people. But yeah.
Councillor Halliday.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Look, just very simply, just wanted to say congratulate council officers on the evolving of this report and that sort of stuff, and just how this stuff's brought through and how it's responded to. Just really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Councillor Spires.
Thank you. I'd just like to say, as councillors, we're here to listen to everyone in our communities, and I'd like to see, if council's going to start making recommendations like this, that we sit down and have a chat to the car enthusiasts and see what they would like to see happen in Kapiti. I know I'm a petrol head from way back, but also the Tasman District Council have now set up a motorsports facility for people. And I think that, rather than come down hard on them and say, or send them all to jail or take all their cars off them, because they'll just go and buy another car anyway. Young people have enjoyed their cars since the 1960s, and we had a motorsports facility in Laban. So they're always going to be here. So I just think that to take some responsibility, we need to sit down with the car enthusiasts and have a chat and say, well, what are your needs? Because we're here for everybody. So that's me, really. I was going to say a whole heap more, but that'll do.
That's very good. Right of reply?
My only reply is that we were going to, long ago, at the start of our training, we were going to put these recommendations from the community board somewhere on an action list or something, and I don't know where they've gone to. We were actually going to document them and then have, like
I think
we're
that's
doing
what we're
with-
doing. When we have any recommendation that says requests, that goes into the work program. I don't think the community board needs one document, the community board actions. But let's take that discussion, further and see.
we did discuss that we would have an ongoing kind of list so that we could take things off the list as they were addressed. And this has been an ongoing problem for before now, is that things have come from community boards and they just kind of get lost.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that
shouldn't
happens.
be a hard thing to do. We just keep a record of. We just copy and paste the recommendations from community boards and keep them somewhere. Yep.
We have one at the
That's why we
OT
couldn't do
community
that.
board, which I'm sure the other community boards have. It just would be handy for the community boards to see that the recommendations haven't just been lost in.
Sounds good. Cool. We've taken a note of that. Thanks, Councillor Warwick. I'll put these to the vote. A, B, C, D. All in favour? Aye. Against? They're carried. Great. So we have confirmation of minutes.
Got the subcommittees one.
Oh, I got subcommittees. Sorry. Yeah, page 49.
Yeah, so I'll just introduce this one as well. That we've just got one in here this week. It is a recommendation from the Social Sustainability Subcommittee. That is just endorsing a recommendation from the Older Persons Council, but staff are actually meeting with the Older Persons Council to work on this one. I don't know if Brendan wants to answer any questions or make comment.
Brendan?
Only, I think they met yesterday. I think Gareth, maybe Monique, Trev popped out to the OPC meeting yesterday afternoon to start those conversations, just to engage with them and explore what the meaning of fitness and recreation is to the older people. So that work started. Yeah.
Councillor Halliday.
Yes, hi. Look, I've got two things I'd like to talk to. Well, first one's on page 52, number 9. It's the discussion part of the recommendation for the Social Sustainability Committee. I note that you're looking at talking to the Older Persons Council with regards to, and I dare say the group that's involved in the delivery of the approach. I just want to flag that, my opinion, a community board needs to be a part of that discussion, and certainly ward councillors need to be a part of that discussion as well, as it pertains to McLean Park. So if I could please flag that to ensure that we are included in that process, would be much appreciated. The second
Brendan's
one.
nodding behind you, by the way.
Thank you, Brendan. Other one is 5.6, which is around the Chief Executive's Performance and Employment Committee. I'm just going to flag again. I'm quite keen to see that subcommittee reporting back to us as a general table. There's been a lack of that, in my opinion, and I've got confidence in regards to the subcommittee with regards to what they're doing, but I still don't know what the KPIs are. I still don't have, still haven't fed into what the discussions are going to be, and we haven't had a manual, a physical report back, which would be appreciated with regards to how that all went. So just flagging that. Others may or may not agree, but I certainly something that I want to see happen.
We had a workshop of KPIs that councillors were welcome to attend. It was held in my office, and I think Councillor Pravanov took up that opportunity.
And how was that reported back?
The feedback from the KPIs were embedded into the KPIs.
No. How was?
We welcome feedback. They were incorporated into the KPIs, which have been circulated. I'll go on to Councillor Pravanov. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I probably should have raised this earlier. So in point 4, the last item is the Climate and Environment Subcommittee of the 20th of August. There was actually the report, which was the Access and Transport Activity Management Plan, which was going to be endorsed by the committee, but it was actually noted because of its late arrival. That's not actually mentioned here.
Probably wasn't in time for the agenda.
What's got here, so it includes, it says, items discussed at each of the meetings listed in paragraphs 4 are noted below. So it's a case of where it's listed there, but the item is not included. the fact that that was discussed, that meeting occurred, and what we discussed is not actually included in the list under 5.
So where are you looking? Paragraph number?
Yeah, so it's paragraph 4. You'll see that there's a list of all the meetings, and it's got here Climate and Environment Subcommittee on the 20th of August. And the next item 5, items discussed at each of the meetings listed in paragraph 4 are noted below. And I can't see anything in relation to that meeting of the 20th of August.
So we may have missed that one out. We'll pop it in for the next one. I'll make a note of
Okay,
it.
thank you.
Or we
I
can
wasn't
amend
sure
the
what-
minutes to reflect that discussion, or we can bring it, just add it to the next paper that comes back.
I
to
think it's
this.
simpler just to add it to the next paper. Thanks for drawing that to our attention, Councillor Pravana.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Halliday.
Through you, Madam Chair, if I could just ask for some clarity, please. The Chief Executive Performance and Employment Committee has met with the CEO, and you said that it's been reported back. I don't recall the meeting where that was reported back to this table. Can you enlighten me on that?
I think we need to look further into that question about the reporting back from CPEC to Council and come back to you, Councillor Halliday. You've
Lovely, much
raised a good
appreciated.
point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Yep, don't want to be pedantic, but I thought we had decided that the subcommittees were no longer going to be subcommittees, but are actually committees. So the Climate and Environment is a committee, and the Social Sustainability Committee, but they're still being reported as subcommittees, and the heading for this 14.4 is reports and recommendations from committees and subcommittees. But so I thought they were. Yeah, I thought they weren't.
So we
subcommittees,
haven't officially made that change yet,
Oh, right.
and that's my ball that I dropped. So we'll follow that up. Thank you, because I know there have been a couple of emails coming in about that. We increased the delegations that would allow that to happen, but we haven't actually changed the names yet. Yeah, so we'll bring a report back around that, and it's taking a note. Okay, do I have a mover then? Moved by Councillor Kirby, seconded by Councillor Handford. Right of introduction? Waived. Any debate? All in favour, please say aye. Aye. That's carried. Thank you. So now we're on confirmation of minutes, page 54. Moved by Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Halliday. All in favour? Aye. Against? That's carried.
My right of
can
introduction
I-
was waived, obviously.
Councillor Wilson, would you like to move that we move into public excluded? Jokes. Councillor Handford, would you like to move that we move into public excluded? Councillor Coe, would you like to second? All in favour? Aye. Against? That's carried.